Description: in the year 2057, human cloning is no longer science fiction, but a legal and ethical minefield. This story follows a young scientist grappling with the implications of creating life in her own image. What happens when innovation challenges the very definition of humanity? Chapter 1. Genesis in the lab. Dr. Elara Voss leaned back in her chair, her eyes fixed on the glowing holographic screen in her lab. The DNA sequencing was complete, flawless. She had achieved what many thought impossible, creating a fully viable human clone. On the other side of the transparent glass chamber lay the culmination of 10 years of work. A young girl, no older than 10, floated in a biofluid pod. Her name was Cleo, chosen not by herself but by Elara. Her face bore an uncanny resemblance to Elara's childhood photos, a perfect genetic mirror. Cleo's presence was a scientific triumph, but the weight of the ethical questions pressed heavily on Elara's shoulders. Outside the lab, the world of 2057 was divided. Cloning had advanced beyond livestock and organ replication into the realm of human identity. Laws allowed it for specific purposes, saving lives through organ farming, preserving endangered genetic lineages, or advancing medical research. Yet, societal acceptance lagged behind, with protests erupting across major cities. The buzzer broke Elara's thoughts. Her colleague, Dr. Riker Hall, entered the lab, his brow furrowed. "Elara, they're here. The ethics committee wants an update." Elara exhaled, her fingers trembling. "Do they want an update, or do they want Cleo destroyed?" Riker hesitated. "You know how this goes. They fear what they don't understand. But they won't make a move until they see her. Are you ready for that?" Elara glanced at Cleo's peaceful face. Ready? She wasn't sure. But she had no choice. Chapter 2. The committee arrives. The ethics committee arrived promptly at 10 a.m. Their polished demeanor clashing with the sterile intensity of the lab. 6 individuals filed in, their expressions ranging from skeptical to outright hostile. Dr. Miriam Hayes, the chairwoman, adjusted her glasses. "Dr. Voss, I trust you understand the gravity of why we're here." Elara nodded, keeping her posture firm. Cleo represents the future of genetic science. She is not just a clone, she's a person. A human being with every right to exist. Miriam's eyes narrowed. A person you created without her consent. Is it ethical to manufacture life like it's a product on a conveyor belt? Elara felt her pulse quicken. Is it ethical to deny progress? Cleo's existence could redefine medicine, aging, even survival itself. She is proof that we can create sustainable solutions to some of humanity's greatest challenges. Another committee member, a biologist named Dr. Farhad Malik, spoke up. What about Cleo's autonomy? Does she have rights? A voice? What happens when she's old enough to question why she was created? The questions landed like sharp blows. Elara had asked herself these same things countless times. That's why I've built this program carefully. Cleo will be nurtured, educated, and given every opportunity to shape her own destiny. Miriam raised a hand to silence the room. Destiny? You talk as if this is a fairy tale. But the truth is, Dr. Voss, you've placed yourself in the role of God. The world is not ready for what you've done. And frankly, neither are you. The tension hung thick in the air. Before anyone could respond, a soft voice interrupted the debate. What is everyone arguing about? Every head turned toward the biopod. Cleo's eyes were open. Chapter 3. A child's first words. The room froze as Cleo's voice, soft yet eerily steady, echoed through the lab. Her wide, curious eyes scanned the group, her expression a mix of innocence and bewilderment. Elara's heart raced. Cleo's awakening was supposed to happen in a controlled, private setting. Not in front of an audience that viewed her as a moral crime rather than a miracle. "Cleo," Elara began, her voice trembling, "you're safe. These are just visitors. They're here to meet you." Cleo blinked slowly, her gaze locking on Miriam. "Why are they mad at you, Elara?" Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her composed demeanor faltering for the first time. She can speak already? Elara nodded, fighting the urge to shield Cleo from their judgmental stares. Her neural development is accelerated. She's designed to adapt and learn faster than an average human child. Miriam's eyes darted between Cleo and Elara. You mean you didn't just replicate her biology, you engineered her intelligence too? Before Elara could respond, Cleo interrupted, her voice laced with curiosity. What does engineered mean? And why are you calling me her? Am I different? The word struck Elara like a thunderclap. Cleo wasn't just a scientific achievement. She was sentient, already grappling with questions of identity. Cleo, you're special. You're just like anyone else, but you have the chance to be something extraordinary. Cleo tilted her head, her gaze turning serious. But if I'm like everyone else, why are you treating me like I'm not? The question lingered, and even the ethics committee seemed momentarily disarmed. For all their debates about Cleo's humanity, the child in front of them shattered their preconceived notions. Enough, Miriam finally said, her voice firm but less certain. We need to convene in private. Dr. Voss, you've clearly crossed boundaries that demand immediate oversight. Elara opened her mouth to protest, but Cleo spoke again. Am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong? The innocence in Cleo's voice broke through Elara's fear. She crouched to meet Cleo's eyes. No, Cleo. You haven't done anything wrong. And I won't let anyone hurt you. Miriam watched the exchange, her lips pursed. We'll reconvene tomorrow. But understand, Dr. Voss, the next decision will be final. As the committee left, the lab felt emptier than ever. Riker approached, his face pale. Elara, what's the plan? If they shut this down, Cleo's life is… No, Elara interrupted, her voice steadier than she expected. Cleo is alive. She's thinking, feeling, questioning. No committee has the right to take that away. I'll fight them, Riker. Whatever it takes. Cleo reached out, her small hand brushing Elara's. Why are you scared? You're Elara. You made me. Doesn't that mean you can fix it? Elara smiled weakly, but her mind churned. Fixing it wasn't the challenge, protecting Cleo was. Chapter 4. The protesters. The next morning, Elara arrived at the lab early. The streets outside were already teeming with protesters, their chants reverberating off the sleek, reflective walls of the Bioethics Research Center. No clones. No gods. Humanity first. Elara kept her head down as she slipped through the side entrance. She could feel their anger like heat on her skin. Riker was already in the lab, pacing nervously. You've seen outside, right? This isn't just about Cleo anymore. People are calling for a full ban on cloning. They're afraid this is the beginning of the end. It's ignorance, Elara replied, though her voice betrayed her unease. They don't understand what Cleo represents. Do you? Riker shot back, his tone sharp. Elara, let's be honest. This was never just about saving lives or advancing science. You created her because you could. Now she's awake, and she's asking questions we don't have answers for. What happens when she realizes she's not like everyone else? Elara hesitated, the weight of Riker's words sinking in. I'll teach her. I'll show her that being different doesn't make her any less human. Before Riker could respond, an alert flashed on the holographic screen. Security footage showed a group of protesters breaking through the outer barriers. Guards scrambled to contain them as they waved signs and hurled insults. Elara's stomach churned. They're getting bolder. If the committee rules against me, if they do, it won't just be Cleo's life on the line, Riker said grimly. It'll be yours too. Elara turned to Cleo, who sat quietly in a corner, watching the chaos on the screen. Her eyes were wide but calm, as if absorbing everything. Elara, Cleo said softly, why are those people so angry? Is it because of me? Elara knelt beside her, struggling to find the right words. They're scared, Cleo. When people don't understand something, they sometimes react with fear. But that doesn't mean they're right. Cleo's gaze didn't waver. Will they hurt you? Or me? Elara's voice broke. Not if I can help it. You're not just my creation, Cleo, you're my responsibility. For the first time, Cleo smiled. Then we'll fix it together. Elara's heart swelled with a mix of pride and dread. Together, she thought. But could they withstand a world determined to tear them apart? Chapter 5, An Ultimatum. The next day, the Ethics Committee reconvened in a high-security chamber deep within the Bioethics Research Center. Elara and Riker sat on one side of a long, glass table, with the 6 committee members on the other. The sterile white wall seemed to close in around them as Miriam Hayes began. Dr. Voss, Miriam said coldly, we've reviewed all aspects of Cleo's creation and existence. The public outcry, the ethical implications, and the unprecedented nature of this case cannot be ignored. This is uncharted territory. Elara clenched her fists under the table. I understand the gravity of what I've done, but Cleo is alive. She's not just a project or an experiment. She's a person. Miriam leaned forward, her expression steely. That's precisely the problem. You've brought a life into this world without any societal framework to protect or guide her. You claim to care about her well-being, but what about the well-being of society? The psychological and legal ramifications of human cloning are catastrophic. Another member, Dr. Malik, chimed in. We're not here to vilify you, Dr. Voss. But we must prioritize the greater good. Cloning technology, if left unchecked, could destabilize everything we know about human identity, family structures, even basic rights. Riker broke in, his frustration boiling over. With respect, isn't that the same argument people used against every scientific breakthrough? Flight, vaccines, AI? Progress has always been scary, but it's necessary. Miriam silenced him with a raised hand. This is not about stifling progress. It's about control. Cleo is a precedent, not an anomaly. If we let this stand, others will follow, and we will lose control over what it means to be human. Elara took a deep breath. You're right. Cleo sets a precedent. But it's not one to fear, it's one to learn from. She's not a monster or a threat. She's a child. And if you destroy her now, you're not just killing her, you're killing the future. The room fell silent. For a moment, Elara thought she had reached them. But Miriam's expression hardened. Dr. Voss, the committee has decided to issue an ultimatum. Either you terminate the experiment and ensure no further clones are created, or Cleo will be taken into government custody. Permanently. Elara's heart sank. Government custody? What does that mean? You'd lock her away? Study her like an animal? Miriam's voice softened, but only slightly. It's not an ideal solution, but it's better than allowing her to roam freely in a world unprepared for her existence. Elara felt a surge of anger. You're condemning her to a life of isolation and fear. That's not protection, that's cruelty. Miriam's gaze was unwavering. The choice is yours. But make no mistake, Dr. Voss, the clock is ticking. Chapter 6, Escape Plan. Back in the lab, Elara paced furiously while Riker sat, his head in his hands. Cleo watched them both from her spot near the biopod, her young face clouded with concern. So, what now? Riker asked, his voice tired. Are you really going to let them take her? I can't, Elara snapped, her mind racing. They'll treat her like an object, not a person. She'll lose her freedom, her future. I won't let that happen. Riker sighed. And what's your alternative? Running? Do you know what kind of surveillance we're under? You can't just walk out of here with her like she's a stray cat. Elara stopped pacing and turned to Cleo, who had been listening quietly. Cleo, she said gently, kneeling to meet her eye level. Do you trust me? Cleo nodded without hesitation. You made me. Of course, I trust you. Elara smiled faintly, though her chest tightened with guilt. Then we have to leave this place. I need you to be brave, okay? This won't be easy. Cleo tilted her head. Where will we go? Somewhere safe, Elara promised, though she had no idea where that would be. Riker groaned. This is insane, Elara. If they catch you, it's not just Cleo they'll come after. You'll go to prison, or worse. Elara straightened, her resolve hardening. Then I won't get caught. But I need your help, Riker. I can't do this alone. He stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled heavily. Fine. But if this goes south, we're both screwed. Elara moved quickly, gathering essentials, Cleo's medical records, data backups, and enough equipment to monitor her development on the run. The protests outside were growing louder, providing a chaotic cover for their escape plan. What about Cleo's pod? Riker asked, gesturing to the bulky device. We can't move that thing without raising suspicion. Elara shook her head. We don't need it anymore. She's stable now. As long as we can monitor her vitals, she'll be fine. Cleo stood up, her small frame radiating a quiet determination. I'll help. Tell me what to do. Elara's chest tightened. For all her fears about Cleo's future, she couldn't deny the strength in the child's eyes. Just stay close to me, Elara said, forcing a smile. And remember, no matter what happens, I won't let anything hurt you. As they prepared to leave, Riker activated a series of false alarms in the building, redirecting security to non-critical areas. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. With Cleo's small hand in hers, Elara stepped into the hallway, her heart pounding. The world outside was hostile and uncertain, but she was determined to protect the life she had created, no matter the cost. Chapter 7. Into the unknown. Elara, Cleo, and Riker slipped through the labyrinth of sterile corridors, the sound of blaring alarms masking their hurried footsteps. Cleo's small hand tightened in Elara's as they approached the facility's service exit. Riker's voice was tense as he whispered, "The guards are still focused on the West Wing, but they'll figure out this is a diversion soon. We need to move." Elara nodded, her mind racing. They had to blend in, but the protesters outside added another layer of risk. If they were recognized, things could spiral out of control. As they exited into the loading dock, the chaos of the protest hit them like a wave. Hundreds of people chanted, their signs and holographic banners glowing in the dim evening light. Security drones buzzed overhead, scanning the crowd for agitators. Riker gestured toward a small, unmarked van parked near the edge of the dock. That's our ride. Keep Cleo close and let me do the talking if anyone stops us. Elara squeezed Cleo's hand. Stay quiet, okay? We're almost there. Cleo nodded, her face calm but curious as she took in the scene. Why are they yelling? Are they mad at me? Elara knelt briefly to meet her eyes. They don't know you, Cleo. They're scared of what they don't understand. But that doesn't make what we're doing wrong. Cleo seemed to accept this, though the question lingered in her thoughtful gaze. As they approached the van, a security guard stepped into their path. His sharp eyes scanned the group, lingering on Cleo. Hey, what's going on here? He demanded. Riker stepped forward smoothly, flashing a forged ID. We're transferring equipment from Lab 14 to the off-site research facility. The alarms? False positive on containment systems. The guard frowned, but seemed to buy the story. What's with the kid? Elara's heart skipped a beat, but Riker didn't miss a beat. Field test subject. Part of the neural adaptive studies. The guard raised an eyebrow but stepped aside. Get moving then. And tell the lab techs to get their system sorted. This chaos is ridiculous. They climbed into the van, Elara's hands trembling as she secured Cleo in the back seat. The vehicle hummed to life, and Riker drove them toward the city's outskirts. We did it, Riker said, relief washing over him. Now we just need to figure out where to go. Elara stared out the window, her mind clouded with uncertainty. The city lights blurred into streaks as they sped away from the lab and into a future that felt as precarious as it was uncharted. Chapter 8. Sanctuary or a Trap. Hours later, they arrived at a safe house, an unassuming cabin hidden deep in the forest outside the city. The place belonged to an old friend of Riker's who had worked with them before cloning research became a public spectacle. As they stepped inside, Cleo looked around with wide eyes. It's quiet here. I like it. Elara forced a smile. We'll be safe here for a while. This is home now. Riker locked the door behind them and immediately set to work securing the perimeter. He activated a jammer to block drones and tracking devices, while Elara unpacked their equipment to set up a makeshift lab. Cleo wandered to a nearby window, staring at the towering trees. Is this what the outside world is like? She asked. Elara joined her, crouching beside her. There's so much more out there than this. Cities, oceans, mountains. Someday I'll show you. Cleo's gaze remained fixed on the forest. Can I ever go out there? Or will people always be mad at me? Elara's heart ached at the question. You will, Cleo. But first, we need to help the world understand who you really are. Riker interrupted, his voice low. We might not have that kind of time. Elara turned to him sharply. What do you mean? He gestured to his portable scanner. I've been monitoring communications. The committee's not taking this lightly. They've issued a capture order for Cleo and you. Every major city has checkpoints now. They've labeled her as a biological hazard. Elara's breath caught. A hazard? She's a child, Riker. Tell that to the government, he shot back. Look, I'm with you, but you need to face the reality here. We can't stay off the grid forever. Cleo turned from the window, her voice quiet but firm. What if I talk to them? Show them I'm not a hazard. Elara shook her head. It's too dangerous, Cleo. They won't listen, not yet. Riker hesitated. But she's not wrong. Public opinion could be the only thing that saves her. If we could get her story out, show the world who she is, Elara's mind raced. The idea was risky. Exposing Cleo could either turn the tide in their favor or paint an even bigger target on her back. If we do this, Elara said slowly, we need to control the narrative. No labs, no committees. Just Cleo, speaking for herself. Riker nodded. I'll reach out to some contacts. We'll need a secure channel to broadcast. But Elara, he paused, meeting her eyes. This is all or nothing. If it backfires, there's no going back. Elara glanced at Cleo, whose calm determination was striking for someone so young. She made her decision. Then we'll make them listen. Chapter 9. The broadcast 2 days later, the plan was in motion. Riker had pulled every string he could, connecting them to an underground network of activists skilled in evading government surveillance. From their forest hideout, they hacked into a global live stream platform, ensuring Cleo's story would reach millions before it could be shut down. The cabin's dimly lit interior buzzed with tension as Elara adjusted the camera. Cleo sat in the center of the frame, her small figure bathed in soft light. She looked calm but curious, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Are you sure about this, Cleo? Elara asked, kneeling beside her. You don't have to do this if you're scared. Cleo smiled faintly. I'm not scared. I want them to know I'm not bad. That I'm like them. Riker gave a thumbs up from behind the computer. We're live in 3, 2, 1. The camera light blinked green, and Cleo's image appeared on countless screens across the world. Elara stepped out of the frame, her heart pounding as Cleo began to speak. Hello, Cleo said, her voice steady but warm. My name is Cleo. I know some of you are scared of me because I'm different. But I don't think being different is bad. She paused, her gaze unwavering. I didn't ask to be made, but I'm glad I'm here. I like learning about the world and meeting people, even if it's just Elara and Riker for now. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to live like you. Elara felt a lump in her throat as Cleo continued. Some people think I shouldn't exist. But isn't life about trying new things and making things better? That's what Elara says. She says I can help the world someday, if you let me. The broadcast continued for 10 minutes, Cleo answering Elara's carefully prepared questions about her feelings, her thoughts, and her hopes for the future. Her natural innocence and intelligence shone through, disarming even the hardest hearts watching. Riker gestured frantically to Elara. "We're getting flagged. They're trying to shut us down." Elara hurried to Cleo's side. "Cleo, you've done so well. We have to stop now, okay?" Cleo nodded, turning back to the camera for one final statement. "Please don't be mad at me. I just want a chance to make friends, to learn, and to grow. I hope you'll give me that chance." The feed cut abruptly as Riker killed the signal to avoid detection. The cabin fell into silence, broken only by the hum of their equipment. "How many people saw it?" Elara asked. Riker scanned his monitors. "Hundreds of thousands. Maybe millions. The video's already being re-uploaded on other networks. They can't contain it now." Elara exhaled, a mix of relief and fear washing over her. "It's out there. Now we wait." Cleo stood up, tugging on Elara's sleeve. "Did I do okay?" Elara knelt, pulling her into a tight hug. "You were perfect, Cleo. I'm so proud of you." Chapter 10. The world responds. The next morning, the internet was ablaze. The broadcast had gone viral, sparking debates across every platform. Supporters rallied behind Cleo, calling her a symbol of hope and progress. Opponents doubled down, accusing Elara of playing God and endangering humanity's future. News outlets scrambled to cover the story. Clips of Cleo's heartfelt speech aired alongside pundits arguing over the ethics of her existence. Protests grew larger, but so did gatherings of supporters holding signs that read, "Let Cleo live," and "We are all human." In the cabin, Elara and Riker monitored the chaos, their emotions swinging between hope and dread. Cleo sat nearby, drawing on a piece of scrap paper. "Elara," Riker said, his voice low, "we've got a problem." Elara rushed to his side. "What is it?" He pointed to a news alert on the monitor. "The government's issued a warrant for your arrest. They're calling you a bioterrorist. And they've put Cleo on the list of classified assets. They're doubling down." Elara's stomach sank. "What about public opinion? People are rallying behind her." Riker grimaced. "It's not enough yet. The government's betting they can crush this before it gets too big. They've mobilized teams to track us down." Cleo looked up from her drawing, sensing the tension. "Are they coming for us?" Elara forced a smile, though her hands trembled. "We'll be okay, Cleo. We just need to stay ahead of them." But deep down, she knew their time was running out. The government wasn't going to stop, and their safe house wouldn't remain hidden forever. Riker leaned closer, lowering his voice. "We need to make a choice, Elara. Either we go deeper underground, or we find a way to force their hand. If the public gets behind us enough, they won't be able to touch her." Elara stared at the monitor, her mind racing. The stakes had never been higher. Cleo's future, and perhaps the future of cloning itself, depended on their next move. "We go public again," she said finally. Louder this time. "They'll have to face us in the open." Riker raised an eyebrow. "You're betting everything on public opinion?" "It's all we have," Elara replied, her voice firm. "If we stay silent, they win. If we run, they'll hunt us forever. But if we make enough noise, the world will have to decide, for Cleo, for all of us." Cleo stood up, her drawing in hand. It was a simple picture of 3 figures holding hands under a bright sun. She smiled at Elara. "I'll help. I'm ready." Elara's chest tightened with pride and fear. "Then let's change the world." Chapter 11. The Turning Point Elara's plan to take the fight to the public was as daring as it was dangerous. With Riker's help, they arranged a live press event through underground channels. This time, the location would be leaked to the public just hours before the broadcast, ensuring that both supporters and detractors would converge. The risk was enormous. The government would undoubtedly respond, and Elara knew they might not make it out unscathed. But Cleo's message needed to reach as many people as possible. The event took place in an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city. By the time they arrived, a small crowd had already gathered, activists, journalists, and curious onlookers. Security drones hovered overhead, broadcasting the scene live to the authorities. Elara stepped onto a makeshift stage, Cleo at her side. The sight of the crowd stirred a mix of hope and terror in her chest. She took the microphone, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "Thank you for coming," she began. "I know many of you have questions, fears, even anger about what I've done. But I'm asking you to set that aside for a moment and listen, not to me, but to Cleo." She handed the microphone to Cleo, who stepped forward with remarkable composure. Her voice was clear and earnest. "Hello. My name is Cleo," she said, scanning the faces in the crowd. "I know some of you don't think I should exist, but I do. And I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want to live, to learn, and to help." She hesitated, then continued. "I didn't choose to be created, but now that I'm here, I want to make the world better. If you give me a chance, I can show you that being different isn't something to fear." The crowd murmured, their reactions mixed. Some clapped hesitantly, while others shouted objections. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the edge of the gathering. Government agents in black tactical gear pushed through the crowd, their voices amplified through bullhorns. "This is an unauthorized event. Dr. Elara Vos, you are under arrest. Surrender the subject immediately." Elara's heart pounded as the agents advanced. The crowd grew restless, some forming a human barrier around the stage. "They're not taking her," someone shouted, and others echoed the cry. Riker grabbed Elara's arm. "We need to go. Now." But Elara stood firm. "No. If we run, this never ends. We have to finish this here." She turned to the agents, her voice ringing out over the chaos. "You're afraid of her because you don't understand her. But look at her. She's a child, not a weapon. If you take her, you prove to the world that you don't care about humanity, you care about control." The agents hesitated, their orders clashing with the mounting resistance from the crowd. The standoff was electric, every second stretching into eternity. Then, Cleo stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "Please don't fight," she said softly. "I don't want anyone to get hurt. I just want to show you I'm not what you think I am." Her words silenced the crowd. Even the agents paused, their rigid postures softening as they exchanged uncertain glances. Chapter 12, A New Beginning. The turning point came not from Elara or the activists, but from Cleo herself. Video of her calm, heartfelt plea spread like wildfire, streamed live to millions around the world. Public opinion shifted rapidly, with hashtags like #LetCleoLive and #HumanityRedefined dominating global trends. Faced with mounting pressure, the government was forced to back down. The agents withdrew, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Elara collapsed into Riker's arms, overwhelmed with relief. But the victory was just the beginning. The ethics committee reconvened days later, this time with a far different tone. Public sentiment had turned, and many of the committee members realized they could no longer argue against Cleo's humanity without facing backlash. Dr. Miriam Hayes addressed Elara directly. "Dr. Vos, while I still question the ethics of your actions, I cannot deny the truth. Cleo is alive. She is sentient. And she is, for all intents and purposes, human. We must adapt to this new reality." It wasn't an apology, but it was enough. The committee voted to grant Cleo full rights as an autonomous individual, a landmark decision that would reshape the future of bioethics and human cloning. In the weeks that followed, Cleo became a global symbol of hope and progress. Scientists, ethicists, and world leaders began working together to establish guidelines for cloning technology, balancing innovation with humanity. As for Elara, her life would never be the same. She was hailed as a pioneer by some and vilified by others, but she had no regrets. Cleo's smile each morning was all the validation she needed. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the forest, Cleo turned to Elara. "Am I really like everyone else now?" Elara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Cleo's face. "You've always been like everyone else, Cleo. You're just a little bit more extraordinary." Cleo grinned, her eyes shining with curiosity and hope. "Then maybe I can help make the world extraordinary too." And in that moment, Elara knew she had not only changed the course of science, but had also given the world something it desperately needed, a reminder that progress, no matter how frightening, could also be beautiful. The end.